Joining us now live from the White House, Deputy Press Secretary Hogan Gidley. Hogan, great to have you with us, man.
Thanks so much for the time. Welcome to the swamp.
Hogan, I know, right? A couple of days out now. You guys had to spend your holidays there. Hold up. I at least got to get the hell out of town. You didn't have that luxury, Hogan. You're still there negotiating. Now, the president's having another meeting today, trying to bring these sides together, get a compromise. What do you think?
Well, first of all, I was happy to welcome Nancy Pelosi back to Washington after her Hawaiian vacation. I will say she looked very tan, very rested, maybe had a few hula lessons down there. We'll never know. But we were all here working, trying to get some solutions and some things done for the American people. The president and the vice president were here. And it kind of culminated yesterday, quite frankly, in an invitation from the president to the Big Eight leadership in both the House and the Senate, Republican and Democrat, to come sit down and hear a briefing from Secretary Nielsen about the crisis at our border. I'm here to tell you, being in that meeting in the Situation Room, the most important room, quite frankly, on the globe,
right?
I watched as the President of the United States turned the meeting over to Secretary Nielsen, who was on the border, so it was a live video feed, and within 5 seconds of the presentation about the crisis on the border, the new numbers that have come in that are showing this to be one of the most dangerous situations we've ever faced, Nancy Pelosi, at Chuck Schumer's prodding, shut down the Secretary of Homeland Security, Secretary Nielsen, and would not let her complete a sentence, and went on. Nancy Pelosi then continued to go on some type of prepared prepared remarks that she and Chuck Schumer played off of each other, just like they did in the Oval Office a couple of weeks ago, refused to listen to the data. And when a tidbit or two did come out showing how dangerous the situation is and just the kind of crisis we face from a national security standpoint and humanitarian standpoint, Nancy Pelosi didn't know the stat, didn't believe the stat, and didn't care about the stat. It blew my mind to watch this go on. And one more thing I need to say, when you put all that up against the backdrop, Nancy Pelosi's behavior in that meeting, and it wasn't just rude or ignorant, it was dismissive, it was in disbelief of what she was hearing. You put all that up against the backdrop in her home state of California, where an officer of the law, a legal immigrant, was just shot and killed by an illegal immigrant.
Right.
Put in the ground the very same day, and Nancy Pelosi hasn't tweeted anything about condolences for the family, hasn't acknowledged the deadly situation that existed and the reality that that poor family faces moving into the new year. And here she is at the White House completely ignoring the statistical information and data that shows how dangerous this situation is.
Let me ask you something, Hogan Gidley, Deputy Press Secretary, White House, President Trump. So Pelosi, you're saying, showed absolutely no interest in any of the facts, any of the figures, any of the information that our Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security was presenting. She had no interest in any of the information.
It was a disdain for it. It was a disregard for it. She accused the Secretary of lying, like it wasn't true statistical data. And had she been coming to this building with her with fulfilling her duty to protect the American people in mind, what she would have heard is that Customs Border Protection arrested 17,000 convicted criminals trying to get into this country last year. Almost 4,000 known or suspected terrorists coming into this country last year. Thousands of gang members, including MS-13, arrested coming into this country last year. She refuses to acknowledge that stat. And if you go to the humanitarian side, just try to wrap your head around this for a minute. We're going to see 100,000 children attempt to come into this country illegally from human traffickers, child smugglers, coyotes who bring across children. It's a 25% increase. We're going to see 100,000 by the first quarter. Those are record numbers. Family units coming to this country, 161,000, 50% more than the previous year. I am telling you, what the Democrats are offering are status quo solutions to critical mass problems. They're offering old funding numbers for a situation that, quite frankly, it didn't help before. And you know they're not serious for a couple of reasons. One is serious people with serious plans don't negotiate in the press. That's what they're trying to do. But second is, if you take a look at what Nancy Pelosi and the Democrats put forward as their plan to fund the government, it may open the government, but it doesn't protect the American people. In fact, it has more funding in their bill going to foreign countries for aid than it does to protect the American people in a border security package. That should tell you all you need to know. In fact, it's twice as much going to foreign countries than it is to protect our people.
You've asked for $5.7 billion. You got that from the House of Representatives. Over $10 billion, and 2 times that has already been appropriated to Mexico, Guatemala, South America. You know, I get it. Invest in their situations, create jobs so that there's not an incentive to come to the United States. I don't begrudge the $10 billion, but the fact that they won't even compromise on this, Hogan, is what I think is bothering a lot of people. And they're saying the president is being obstinate. I mean, they basically said it's my way or the highway, right?
Well, they did, but let me unpack that for just a second.
Go ahead.
Through the president's negotiation style and Secretary Nielsen, we worked out a deal with Mexico that now asylees, or people who claim asylum coming to the country, which, by the way, has gone up, the credible fear claim has gone up 1,700% in the last 8 years, okay, because they know it's a loophole to try and get in this country. We've negotiated a deal with Mexico. The government now says when they come through our country and try to get into yours, America, we will hold them in our country until their trial can be adjudicated in the United States. That's going to save us billions of dollars. And in fact, what that now says is that the government of Mexico is now doing more to protect the American people than our Democrats. They are working to solve our immigration crisis, the government of Mexico now, more than the Democrat Party. That should tell you all you need to know. And right now, what we have, and you'll remember that famous meeting in the Oval Office where Nancy Pelosi said, the American people this, the American people that. She said that, but her policies don't do anything to protect the American people, number one. Number two, she also said, Mr. President, you don't have the votes in the House. You don't have anything that can pass. The President said, I can do it in 2 seconds. Nancy Pelosi said, no, you don't. Next thing you know, the meeting adjourns. He calls the people over from the House. They go right back to the floor and vote out a package with $5.6 billion of funding. It goes right through. Now it's squarely in the hands of the Senate. So once again, a year ago we were in the same place with the Schumer shutdown. 9 Democrats have to come on board and decide whether they're going to let their hatred for this president surpass their love of the country. And it seems right now these same Democrats, Schumer, Clinton, Obama, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, all voted for fencing, all voted for a wall, all voted for a border security package that's much bigger than the one that President Trump is asking for. A couple of things have happened since that vote back in 2006 and in 2013. One of those is that the problem has gotten much, much worse. 2 is the political calculus has completely changed. Now they think everyone who comes here is going to vote for them, and all they want is power, so they're going to try and let them in this country illegally so they can have their vote forever. And 3 is, and this is probably the most telling from their political mindset, Donald Trump's in the White House. Those are the 3 differences. And they've taken those differences and said, you know what, instead of what they are doing extensively is standing with hundreds of thousands of people who come to this country every year illegally and unlawfully, as opposed to standing with hundreds of millions of American citizens.
It's an incredible position to take right now, and not to be able to compromise at all. Like the president has said, let's meet, let's try to get this worked out. Let me just ask you something, Hogan Gidley. We're with Hogan Gidley. He is the deputy press secretary at the White House for President Trump. Hogan, let me just ask you one question for our audience. The $5.6 billion package for the wall that was already passed by the Republican House in December, is that still stand, or is that going to get just overturned today when Nancy Pelosi takes over as Speaker, assuming she has the votes?
I'm sorry, the question, does what still stand?
The $5.6 billion package, the spending package coming out of the House in December, does that still stand, or is that just done today?
I'm fairly certain procedurally that resets from what I understand. But the president's been clear about where he stands,
right?
And he hasn't reset. We need enough money to secure the border. And I'll tell you, the president's package, it opens the government, it funds the government, and it protects the American people. Their package opens the government, funds the government, but does nothing to protect the American people. Now, I will say, President Trump's immigration policy is based largely on, which includes a wall, is based largely on what Customs Border Protection, ICE, DHS all say they need to protect the people. Right. Every one of those agencies put forth numbers. And as I said before, the status quo solutions aren't working anymore. So there's a 25% increase of unaccompanied children coming across that dangerous journey, 50% more in family units, a 2,000% increase in asylum claims. Right. This is a flood of people coming in, and your listeners saw this in that graphic video around New Year's Eve when they were trying to storm the wall and come over the wall. Right. The very little secret here is walls work. Whether it's Israel, whether it's Yuma, Arizona, whether it's Tucson, when you put up a wall, border crossings drop anywhere from 95 to 99%. That's almost a complete cessation of illegal border crossings in those areas. They know walls work. That's why, as the president pointed out so articulately, that's why Barack Obama put a wall around his house in D.C. Because he knows it works to keep people out. He knows it deters people from trying to come into his house. He knows that. The fact that now they don't want everyday Americans to have the same solutions that they are afforded is hypocrisy at the highest level.
Well, there's the elites in the swamp right there. What's good enough for them is not good enough for everybody else. But look, Hogan Gidley, you nailed it. The real issue here is not supporting the president on something that is in the best interest of the American people, and it's about opposing the president to appease their base. And as you said, Democrats want cheap votes. They get them in, they get some sort of a benefit, government benefit somewhere. They were the ones that allowed them to come in illegally, and then they turn them into Democratic voters in perpetuity. So everybody knows how they're gaming the system. And then you look at asylum changes that the president attempted to make, which was shot down by the Ninth Circuit the other day. And the Mexico government has allowed and provided 4,000 work visas for the caravan that's in Tijuana right now. 4,000 work visas for 1 year to stay and work in Mexico. That means if they were fleeing something bad, then they could stay in Mexico, get a work visa, right? Work, live, prosper. You know that of the 4,000 that President AMLO offered, only 190 have applied. What does that tell you right there?
Here's what it tells you what the statistics bear out. 90% of those who come to this country who are claiming asylum from a credible fear, meaning that they're being persecuted, there's like a 6-point checklist that they're asked in court. 90% of those claiming credible fear from their governments, 90% are rejected and say, no, that's a fake claim. Now, a majority of the people, I think 75% of the migrants in these caravans are saying they're coming here for better economic opportunity, right? So theoretically, once you cross the border of a country that you claim is oppressing you or targeting you or committing acts of violence for religious persecution and various reasons to come in, once you cross into a country that's a safe haven, you should immediately go to that government and apply for asylum, take Mexico up on its generous offer to live and work there and not be persecuted by the government. Instead, they're asylum shopping, trying to come to this country. Now, it should be noted, Donald Trump made this point. The President of the United States made this point. We want immigrants in this country. We are a nation of immigrants, but we want them to come in the legal way. And to pretend as though we are some harsh nation as it relates to immigrants is preposterous on its face. We allow 1.1 million people a year to become citizens of this country from other nations.
Right.
We allow 500,000 work visas, 500,000 student visas every year. So to pretend as though this is some type of nation that is cold and heartless to those who want to come here is absolute and utter nonsense. What we have to do is close the loopholes, Build a wall. At the very least, the wall funnels people to ports of entry where the government can then see those people, because what they're doing is they're taking these women and children up through dangerous, perilous journeys. In the caravans, 30% of women claim rape. They say they're raped on the way up. 70% claim some form of assault on the way up, and they're not bringing them to ports of entry. 85% of crossings occur in between ports of entry because the coyotes understand, the drug smugglers understand, the human traffickers understand, if we can just get them across the border, what they're selling to their people at home, we can get you across the border, you'll be a citizen in no time. We'll take care of that. So the incentive is there for them not only to break the law, but to put extreme dangers, extreme perils onto unsuspecting people who just want a better life. We understand they want a better life, but there is a way to do it the right way that protects them and, quite frankly, is better for this country.
Well, look, going through the legal means, which is applying for asylum in the U.S. ports of entry, I mean, that is the way the laws are written. What we have now is, though, as soon as you put a foot over the border, although you're breaking one law, you're then protected by other laws as soon as you put that foot over. And so there is an abuse of the asylum system, and it should be preserved and protected for those that legitimately qualify. As you said, Hogan Gidley, 90% of those that are seeking asylum, those claims, when investigated, are rejected. And simply a better economic opportunity is not the reason to claim asylum. Look, there's 7 billion people in the world, Hogan, that would rather live in the United States because there's a better opportunity for them. We can't absorb the entire world. So these laws make sense. But isn't it ironic that the new president of Mexico, AMLO, isn't it ironic that is the president of Mexico that has done more to try to solve the situation with the migrants and the caravan as it relates to illegally coming into the United States than our own government? How does that make sense?
It's unbelievable, and I will point out one of the reasons people don't really understand the crisis is because for decades this has been a growing problem that few people actually knew about, and one of the reasons why is because the data isn't available.
Right.
This president came in and said, I want the data from my agencies that tell me who's coming into this country, how they're getting here, why they're coming here, and I want raw data and numbers because data drives policy. And we found it's been virtually impossible to get numbers from these agencies because either A, previous administrations basically hid the numbers, or B, they didn't want them compiled in the first place.
Right.
So you can't just update a number each year. It didn't exist. You had to go back and find the data and create these tables because nobody else really wanted to fix the problem. This president came in and said, nope, we're fixing the problem. Give me the data. The agency says, we don't have the data, and he says, find it. I want the data. And so now we're coming to a point in this administration where we have kind of gone on a fact-finding and also information-sharing campaign for the American people to just see what's going on here so that when you hear claims that all is fine on the border, right, that there are no issues on the border, that this crisis is manufactured. There is no caravan, Mr. President, one of the reporters famously said. They aren't going to try and storm the border, Mr. President, as one of the reporters famously said. Then, lo and behold, they show up at the border, and what do they try to do? They come running across the border, running through the little water area there, up the other side, trying to climb the fence. We all now see the video that what the president has been saying, what the president has been warning about is 100% true. And I will say this. Think about, as I started this interview with Nancy Pelosi and the death that occurred in California, all of the issues that we face, these deaths are needless and they are senseless. And here's what else. They are 100% preventable.
Right.
All we have to do is close these loopholes. They won't come to this country, and those lives will be saved. And that's what the president wants to do.
Hogan Gidley, we're out of time. I want to thank you for that great update, super analysis. Hogan Gidley, the Deputy Press Secretary at the White House to President Trump. Thanks for joining us. It was great to have you on and get your insight and perspective. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the time. Y'all have a great day.
All right, Hogan Gidley there at the White House joining us here on the John Fredericks Radio Network. And Quite the analysis we just got. You can't ask for anything else. Best radio in America right here, John Fredericks Radio Network.